What is up? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What is going on? Tough. Very, 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 very tough news for the Toronto Raptors after this one. Um, just for everybody who has not seen the news yet, it was reported by the Toronto Raptors that Scottie Barnes has fractured the third metacarpal bone on his left hand and will be out indefinitely. Scottie injured that in the second quarter, I believe. From my vantage point, the Raptors set a specific time. I have to go back and check the play. From my vantage point in the arena, it seemed like when Emmanuel quickly was kicking his leg up, um, that Scottie kind of injured that hand over there. And that is the big news of this game, folks. I think for the most part, when you look at this season, there's two ways to look at this injury, right? The Raptors are really trying to figure out their chemistry with this group. And, there's going to be people who talk about the tanking and, well, there's an opportunity here to keep the pick and whatnot. I'm personally in the camp of them. They should not keep this pick. They should let it convey. Um, but it is not his shooting hand, Christopher. It is not a shooting hand. It is his left hand, the left hand, third metacarpal bone. And so, look, man, this is really unfortunate. It sucks because Scottie was having an excellent season, all-star level season, right? And by the way, folks, for people who were expecting Samson, he's still not here yet. He will be here soon. I'm just replacing him just for today because he's got a flight to catch. This is the Sun Life guy. Yes, exactly. He's got a flight to catch and whatnot. And he will be back, entertaining you guys very soon. I'm sure of that. But yeah, figured I'd come in and sort of react and talk about this game with you guys. And for the most part, talk about Scottie and what this means for this next 6 weeks of the Toronto Raptors and, for the rest of this season, really. From Scottie's perspective, it's unfortunate because he was having a great year. He was really building something for himself, especially in this stretch without Pascal Siakam. I think these were really important reps for him to figure out who he was going to be. Just dealing with different coverages, working through different schemes, figuring out how he can be a better pick and roll ball handler, working to be a little bit better defensively. Like without OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam and Precious Achiuwa, it was Scottie who was taking on the Luka Doncic matchup against the Dallas Mavericks. And, tonight it was kind of mismatched across from different places. But for the most part, like he's the guy that they're hoping can be molded into some sort of defensive stopper, at least the 6'9" wing type. And that I think is going to be a brutal loss for Scottie because he was having such a great season. And to kind of delay any sort of development there is going to be tough. You look at the Raptors as a whole, and Keeks had a really great tweet about this. I think she said, in the last 20 games, Raptors have been outscored by 17.8 points per 100 possessions in 278 minutes with Scottie Barnes off of the floor. Not good. Not good whatsoever. And I think things are going to be rough for the Toronto Raptors. Cody mentioned it in the chat. This is a very, very good reference because I have Wendell Carter Jr. on my fantasy team. I experienced it. Wendell missed 20 games with a third metacarpal fracture that required surgery. Again, we will see, like Cody said, if he will need surgery. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe it heals by itself. But the Raptors have 22 games left. And in those 22 games, it's unlikely that Scottie returns. It's a 3 to 6 week injury, and there's 6 weeks left in the season. 3 weeks is very, very, very optimistic. 6 weeks is the likely scenario, and that would put them, it would put it at the end of the season. So I'm going based on Scottie potentially could miss the rest of this season. And when I do that, it sucks. When you think about that aspect of things, it does suck a lot. And for the exact reason that I mentioned in the development. you look at the last 20 or so games for Scottie Barnes post Pascal Siakam, there have been some rough moments, but there have been some really, really positive moments as well. I think just his ability to figure out what defenses are going to throw at him, what kind of coverages he's going to try and attack. How, Darko Rajakovic mentioned how they're working on him with post ups and creating advantages through post ups. Now that gets hindered. You kind of delay that development. All of this, to me, he needed those moments. He needed those reps. He needed to deal with, guarding those things. And that gets delayed 6 weeks. And that's tough. That's really, really tough. I know there is this, in the back of people's minds saying, oh, well, you might get the pick. You might get the pick. In my opinion, the development of these guys, building the chemistry around IQ, around RJ, around Scottie, around Grady is more important to me than keeping that pick this year. And I know there's like another side to this of people saying that if you can get a top 6 pick, you do. Sure. Yeah, I understand that. But I think for the most part, I would have rather seen this team figure out how they're going to work together chemistry wise, both offensively and defensively. And now that kind of goes out the window. And so what does Scottie's injury look like for the rest of this roster? Well, you'll see Emmanuel quickly get more touches and usage. You'll see RJ Barrett get more touches and usage. I imagine we will see much more of Grady Dick, much more of Ochai Agbaji, much more of Jordan Nwora, probably more Javon Freedom Liberty, and really everybody else is going to have to step up a little bit because Scottie got the bulk of the touches and usage for this team moving forward, especially after the Pascal Siakam trade. So how does this look? How does this team manufacture looks offensively is going to be the massive part of how this team looks for the next 6 weeks. You saw the second half of basketball tonight. And I guess we can kind of get into the game a little bit. The Golden State Warriors came into town. It was the Steph Curry show. It wasn't only the Steph Curry show in the game, before the game, after the game. There were so many Warriors fans. There were so many Steph Curry fans in the arena, a sea of blue. And I just went to the Mavericks game. I saw something similar with Luka. They were like, look, there was a bunch of Luka fans, Slovenian flags, and everything like that. But with Steph, it was just different. It was just pandemonium. I had never seen that many people waiting at 6 o'clock to rush to the gate and wait to see Steph Curry warm up. That was incredible from a perspective that I have never gone to a Warriors game outside of I went to the 2019 NBA Finals Game 5. Not gonna brag, but outside of that, I've never been to a Warriors game. And so to see that aspect of it, it was just amazing. It was incredible to see how many fans were so invested in Steph Curry, even in Toronto. And I haven't seen that in a while, to be honest with you. That's another conversation for another day in terms of ticket prices and, people being invested in the team and whatnot. But that was a really, really crazy moment. And so the Warriors come in. I think the Raptors play a pretty good first half of basketball. They kind of withstood some of the kind of shot making from Steph Curry. Moses Moody had a really good game. They sustained some of the driving ability of Jonathan Kuminga, the playmaking pop of Draymond Green. And going into the first, to halftime, the Raptors led. And like they were doing okay. They were figuring things out. I thought, defensively they could have been better. And the Warriors in general were causing some headaches at the pick and roll with Steph and, just the 2-man game between him and Draymond. There were some actions where you're like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know how the Raptors are going to defend this, but that's what happens when you have Steph Curry on the other side of the floor. That's going to be the matchup headache, right? And I mentioned this on Wednesday when it came to Luka Doncic as well, how the Raptors are going to scheme defensively to guard these guys is going to be the name of the game for them defensively. I know it sounds simplistic to say, but when you look at how this team is kind of constructed, they don't have an OG Anunoby to look to, or even a Precious Achua to look to, or even a Pascal Siakam to look to try to guard these guys. And there's not one specific player you can say that is a defensive stopper on this team. And so when it comes to guarding guys like Luka, Steph, in a couple of days, it'll be Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. How are you going to get stops? How are you going to devise game plans against these guys when you don't necessarily have the defensive tools to devise a game plan against those guys? Very curious about how that's going to work. And honestly, now with Scottie Barnes out of the lineup, that becomes even more of a tricky situation. Respect GTJ, defensive stopper, third on the defense. Hey, look, Sampson's in here, folks. He's here, tapping in from what's it called? From the airport, saying hi, tapping in from I know he's got he's probably in Air Miles Lounge or something like that, hanging out, kicking his feet up, leather on the seat, just relaxing. But yes, Sampson, my guy, he'll be back and helping y'all out in a bit. But when it came to this game, I thought the Raptors left some points on the table in a few different ways. Emmanuel quickly struggled tonight, but most of his looks from three were good. I believe he took 12 or 11 threes tonight, and most of those looks were good. He only finished with 3 made threes. And I think the attempts for me are more important than the actual made shots. Obviously, you'd love for him to make those shots, but it just didn't seem like the shots were going down for him. Not sure if it was the pizza. A lot of carbohydrates in pizza. I know for myself, if I have a slice of pizza, then I'm not going to be able to play good basketball. But look, I'm mostly kidding, folks. Yeah, I agree, Ayan. I agree with you that Moses Moody was locking him up. Moses Moody did an incredible job at the point of attack today against Emmanuel quickly. He was awesome. He was getting into his face. He was being physical with him. And I think moving forward, guys like that are going to be interesting to see how quickly adjusts to that type of defensive coverage when guys are being extra physical with him. And in general, I'm sort of curious to see how he's going to counter. Although I will say, quickly got a lot of good looks. Like if you go back and look at the game log, I think quickly got a lot of great 3-point shots that for the most part have fallen throughout this year for the Toronto Raptors, but they just did not fall tonight. And that is part of it. Gary Trent Jr. was 1 of 6 tonight from 3. He also missed a couple of open ones. Jakob Poeltl on the inside, the little bunnies, he was missing those. And the Raptors missed a lot of layups. Post-game, Darko Rajakovic mentioned, he's like, there were some moments where we had the game in hand and threes didn't fall, layups didn't fall. There was a turnover here, a bad pass here, something like that. Maybe the offense stagnated a little bit and they couldn't really make it up. I mentioned this. Yeah, Coco says it. We also miss free throws. They also have been terrible at the free throw line for the last 2 games. Actually, not even for the last 2 games, folks. Last 2 games would be insane to say. They have been terrible from the free throw line all season. It doesn't matter who is on the Toronto Raptors. You could put me and Sampson on the Toronto Raptors, who, by the way, we're pretty good free throw shooters. Sampson better than me at free throws. But we would turn into bad free throw shooters if we were on the Toronto Raptors. It makes no sense. Shout out to Joe Wolfon. I was sitting beside him, my guy from the Score, today at the game. And we were just laughing about this free throw thing because RJ Barrett was an 83% free throw shooter in New York. He comes to Toronto. He's shooting 59% from the free throw line. Emmanuel quickly, he was an 87% free throw shooter in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, guess what he's shooting from the free throw line right now? Less than 87%. I will tell you that. He's shooting 82% from the free throw line. We even went ahead and looked at Precious Achiuwa. Precious Achiuwa was shooting 57% from the free throw line in Toronto. He goes to New York. Guess what? 68%. I'm not sure what is happening. The Noah shooting board, whatever you want to relate it to, but free throws are becoming a consistent issue for this team. And I have no explanation. And I've mentioned this on the Raptors show yesterday, but you can't really ask about free throws. Why are you missing your free throws? Is never going to get a good response. You're never going to get an answer from Darko like, oh, well, we're missing our free throws because of this. No, they're just going to say we have to shoot and be better at our free throw game. And I just don't know. I really don't understand it. I have no idea. It's a puzzling thing that I just do not understand. If anybody has any solutions in the chat, let me know because I would love to know what you guys think about the free throw stuff. It's mind boggling. Either way, too many mistakes, too many marginal stuff that just didn't go down. The 3-point shooting wasn't good, missed some layups here and there, and the free throws. And I think when you have that much talent on the other side of the court in Steph Curry, in Jonathan Kuminga, in Draymond Green, and Moses Moody, who all had excellent games, it's tough to overcome that when you do those type of mistakes. Same thing applies in the Mavericks game. That Mavericks game, the turnovers in the third quarter, the missed layups, the bad passes, the stagnation offensively. I thought, credit to Dallas's defense, but in general, like the third quarter, you saw them kind of tighten up a little bit. That is because, I mean, not because, but the margin of error there against these really talented teams is so much more thin. It's so much smaller. So you can't make those type of mistakes. And when you do make those type of mistakes, it just increases your chances of losing that game. And that's what happened tonight, folks. That's pretty much what happened. The Raptors tried some things with Scottie Barnes out of the lineup. They put Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl together. I'm interested to see if that will be the case moving forward. I would expect more minutes for Chris Boucher also moving forward, especially to finish this year, just because if they do put Jakob and Kelly in that starting lineup together, then, there's obviously going to be a hole in the front court. Maybe Jonte Porter gets some minutes. Like there's ways that the Raptors can fill up their front court spots, but losing Scottie's going to be tough, man. 25-5, whatever his numbers are right now. And he was figuring out the game, figuring out some of these coverages. It's just tough. It's tough. It's really, really hard to reconcile this game, to even discuss this game without thinking back to the Scottie moment and the Scottie injury, because at the end of the day, he's the franchise guy. He's the tag. He's the guy who the Scottie Barnes is the face of the league, right? Darko Rajakovic said that. Well, Scottie Barnes is the face of the Toronto Raptors, and he will likely be missing the rest of the season. So Emilio DeMarco said, I'm a hand therapist, and it's 2 months before beginning strengthening and 3 months for no restrictions. And so if that is the case, Emilio, 2 to 3 months most likely means he's out. And from just searching things up online and whatnot, nobody here is a doctor. Maybe Emilio is, but it's likely that Scottie Barnes will miss the rest of the season. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Things you guys want to mention? Comments? Let me know. Throw them my way. Let's talk. I appreciate everybody who has tapped into the recaps and things like that. There won't be a recap tonight because I am doing this, and this is a recap of sorts for you guys. Yeah. What did you think of Chris's minutes? Boucher wasn't really doing himself any favors out there tonight. I didn't think it was the best Chris Boucher minutes. Now, that being said, I don't think the Raptors will have much of a choice in playing Chris Boucher, and I've always been a Chris Boucher advocate. I think that he has pretty consistently brought a level of energy and consistency off of the bench for the Toronto Raptors over the last 4 years as a bench guy for them. I think I love his ability to stretch the floor when he can hit his shots, but he's also he's like a utility knife on defense, and when he taps into that, I think that's a pretty good bench player to throw out there for the Toronto Raptors. That being said, it's it's tough for a guy like that to really get that type of rhythm when he's in and out of the lineup so much as he's been over the last month. And I think we saw some of that tonight. It just seemed like he was out of sorts. He probably didn't expect to play, to be honest with you. He didn't. I don't think he expected to play tonight, but obviously the Scottie injury changed some of that. And so I expect Chris Boucher to play more moving forward. And I don't think his minutes were great tonight, but I thought the last time he played in the Pacers game, Valentine's Day against Pascal, he was awesome. He was incredible. And he was a big reason they almost won that game. So, yes, I think Chris will play much more. Ayan says, what's the starting lineup with Scottie out? It's a good question. It really is. I would advocate for Grady Dick being in the starting lineup. The reason I say that is because Grady has some of the ancillary skills, the little playmaking pop, shooting pop, obviously, that might make things a little bit more at ease. You're not going to win a lot of minutes with Scottie out, right? It's going to be a struggle, folks. But I think putting Grady in there, so the starting lineup would be IQ, GTJ, Grady, RJ, Jakob. I think offensively, it could give you a little bit of pop. You're running a lot, you're shooting, like you're trying to get guys going off of these split actions and whatnot, and like there's a lot of cutting, going around. You're just kind of yo-yoing between finding IQ and finding Grady and finding GTJ and RJ barreling to the rim. Like that this will be your source of offense moving forward. In general, I think that might make sense. I'm not sure the Raptors feel the same way. And the reason I say that is because in the second half of this game, they started Kelly Olynyk in place of Scottie Barnes. And with that group, you have an extra bit of size. So it'd be Jakob, Kelly, RJ, GTJ, IQ. With that, you still have that size, that replicable size, 2 7-footers out there. One that can stretch the floor in Kelly Olynyk. So you still have that spacing that's available to you. And you still have that playmaking pop. In fact, you probably have a little bit more playmaking pop with Kelly and Jakob, just kind of high post actions, keep feeding cutters and dribble handoffs and whatnot. And so that's a world I could see where that makes sense to put Kelly Olynyk in. I'm very fascinated to see how Darko Rajakovic moves because I think there's a world in which you can put Grady Dick in there as well, but who knows? We'll see. Okay, Red Zone. What are the vibes like at the arena? I see people trying to hype the crowd, but doesn't seem to do anything. Honestly, the crowd has been good. The last few games that I've went to 3 games since the All-Star break. Went to the Nets game, went to the Mavericks game, and I went to the Warriors game. Now, that being said, Mavericks and Warriors games were very different because people were there for Luka, people were there for Steph. But for the most part, I thought the crowds have been pretty good. Maybe it's not that way on TV. Honestly, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Coco asks, are you have to have Javon Freedom literally? I'm assuming you're saying happy. I think you mean happy here, Coco. I'm assuming that, and I think that is what you mean. Are you happy to have Javon Freedom Liberty on the team now? I am ecstatic. He has been incredible in the G League. One of the best G League players this season. Coco corrects herself and says happy. Yes. He has been one of the best G League players this season. From the people who cover the G League very consistently, Andrew Damlin here on Raptors Republic and whatnot, you can see how important he is to the 905 and what they've been able to do this season. He's also grown as a scorer, and everything along the lines of that. I think he definitely deserves a shot at the NBA level, and now he's going to get that shot in a long-term basis. He's no longer a two-way player in the sense that you're going to call him up for 5 minutes here and there. He is a mainstay on the team. And I think there's value in that. Darko pregame was mentioning how important he's been in their inter practice runs. So, that third string team that comes in and plays with their runs that they do, he's been excellent. So I would like to see him play more. I know we got to see him for like a minute tonight, final minute of the game. I would like to see him play more. There's a world in which he could be a good player on the Toronto Raptors. I'm not sure why he doesn't get more minutes, to be honest with you. But now, long-term deal, long-term contract. It's not just about this season. It's also about next season. And I think there's a world in which he can play even more next year for the Toronto Raptors. So I'm very excited to have Javon back. Do you think Jonte Porter will return to the rotation to keep a big with the second unit? Absolutely. I think there's time open for Jonte, for Chris Boucher. I think, even guys like Javon and Jordan Nwora, like those guys are going to play. Scottie Barnes led the team in touches. Scottie Barnes led the team in usage. I'm sure if I were to look it up, Scottie Barnes led the team in minutes. And so there's going to be a lot to divvy up. So Chris is going to play. Jonte is going to play. There's going to be a lot of guys who are going to get extra steps, extra reps, get more minutes. It's going to be a lot, folks. Raptors fan says, Raptors Reddit very unhappy with the Toronto Raptors crowd cheering for Steph and the Warriors. I can understand that. I 100% can. And to be honest with you, I mean, I think part of that is the fact that Raptors prices are very expensive. I was talking with a friend who was there, and they were like, "Well, I was looking in the 100 section for a game against the Indiana Pacers, the Valentine's Day game against the, Pascal, the return and whatnot. In the hundreds, you could have bought a ticket for $150. And that's pretty good. Valentine's Day, Pascal reunion, Pacers are a pretty good team. They're not like a marquee team, but they're still a pretty good team. You get to see Tyrese Halliburton. $150 for lower bowl seats. That's incredible. The Warriors seats, however, were $800. The same seats, the exact same seats that he was going to buy for the Pacers game was $800 for the Warriors game. And so pregame, when I was watching everybody, the swath of people watching pregame warmups for Steph, everybody there in the lower bowl, I was thinking to myself, how much money these people paid just for the opportunity to watch Steph Curry warm up, just for the opportunity, the potential for Steph to sign their jersey. Because Steph didn't sign every jersey. Luka did. Steph didn't. Steph obviously probably just didn't want to. But yeah, that was something that amazed me because I was just flummoxed by that. And you know what? I think I can understand why Raptors Reddit was not happy with that. Because you want people to be cheering for the Toronto Raptors. It's not like, I mean, it's very, very simple. And yeah, ultimately I'm very interested to see how that moves forward because there are a couple of marquee names coming up here for the Toronto Raptors. Zion is coming here on Tuesday. OG reunion later. Shea is coming here as well. And there's going to be LeBron in April. So there's a lot of marquee names coming up for the Toronto Raptors. And unfortunately, the Raptors likely will not have their marquee star in Scottie Barnes. And I hate to keep harping on that, but realistically, that is the main story here for the Toronto Raptors. And from this game, Scottie Barnes is, fractured hand now. How the team moves forward in the next 6 weeks will be very, very telling. And I guess we should have the draft conversation, right? Okay. I will have the draft conversation very quickly for my people in here. Um, I personally, even before the injury, I was very much so on the team. Let it convey. Let the burden be over with after this season. If the Raptors can give up the 8th or ninth pick this year and retain the 10th or 11th pick next year, I think it was well worth it to let that pick go to San Antonio. That now sort of changes with the Scottie Barnes injury because the Raptors will be very bad without Scottie Barnes. In that, there's no question. Maybe there's room for RJ Barrett to develop himself, to grow as a playmaker, to grow as a scorer. There's going to be ample opportunity for Emmanuel quickly to figure things out himself and, work as a playmaker and ball handler and whatnot. And I think that's going to be an interesting aspect. Post All-Star break, they shifted IQ a little bit off of the ball. I would imagine he's back on ball and he's back playing with the ball much more. So they're going to tap into his playmaking a lot more. Maybe that turns out to be a good thing. I actually think long-term that will turn out to be a pretty good thing for the Toronto Raptors. But should the pick convey? Should the Raptors pull the plug on this season? From everything that I've heard, from the discussions that I've had with people, the Raptors aren't actively going to pull this out. Maybe the Scottie injury changes things because I think the Raptors genuinely wanted to get into the play-in. I think they genuinely wanted to build the chemistry with this team, to build with IQ and RJ and Scottie and figure out how those three look together next to this new core, this supporting cast of Jakob and Kelly and Grady and whatnot, how this thing was going to look long-term. We got 4 games of that. It's really unfortunate because those 4 games is pretty much all we're going to have to work off of. Yeah, Raptors fan says pizza party vibes were short-lived. They were very short-lived. And yeah, it's very unfortunate. I'm wondering how this, like, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. There's 38, 40 people right now watching this live. Tell me what you guys think. Should the Raptors want to tank this season out? Should they try to keep their pick this year? knowing damn well, knowing damn well that if they keep their pick this year, they are obligated next year, top six protected. And if they somehow keep their pick next year, they are also obligated in 2026, top six protected. So let me know what you guys think in the chat. Red Zone says, what the heck is wrong with Bruce Brown? Yeah, it's been tough, man. It has been tough. It has been very, very tough to watch Bruce Brown with this group. And as much as theoretically on paper, you can look at this Raptors team and say, the cutting, the off ball movement, the secondary ball handling, all of those things fit what Bruce Brown is good at or should be good at. And yet it hasn't worked out. The defense is something that really catches my eye in the sense that, he was a really sound point of attack defender for the Nuggets, sometimes played the 4 or 5 for the Brooklyn Nets, and none of that is really there. I just do not see why that's happening. I think for the most part, Bruce Brown really benefits from playing next to extremely good players. In the Brooklyn Nets, it was KD and Kyrie. With the Denver Nuggets, it was Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray. And so here in Toronto, while there are very good players in Scottie and IQ and RJ, I think it probably makes more sense in a group where he doesn't necessarily need to do much. This is a guy, by the way, Game 3 of the NBA Finals in Miami, dagger to close out, to win the game for Denver. He's had big moments in the playoffs. So I just don't know if it's more of an effort thing and him not necessarily buying in, or if it's just this talent level on this Toronto Raptors team, the rebuild is not necessarily the situation for him. I tend to think it's the latter. I think, if you were to go ahead and put him on, I don't know, the Golden State Warriors, if you were to put him on the Warriors today, I think he would be better because the attraction, the defense is looking at Steph and Clay and Kuminga, and they don't have to necessarily worry about Bruce Brown. Whereas now, Bruce Brown is being asked to lead second units with Kelly, with Grady. And so there's not necessarily that magnet to draw the attention to let Bruce Brown feast off ball. Yeah. Raptors fan asks, the chances of keeping the pick at 6th worst isn't even that great. 45%. That is what the Raptors probably thought. When you think about like risk assessment, these guys are businessmen at the end of the day, businessmen and women. They think about risk assessment. And when you look at it, it's like we could have a 45% chance at a top 6 pick, or we could have a 55% chance of losing our pick and having 7 to 9. So they weren't going to let the lottery odds decide their fate. That's why they wanted to go and hunt for the play-in, because they were like, hey, if we hunt for the play-in, the higher our pick is, the Spurs get a worse pick, or, we might get our pick back because the odds there aren't that much. And so, yeah, I tend to agree with you here. I just don't see the value in that. That being said, the Raptors will be very bad moving forward with Scottie Barnes. And so if they rack up losses and somehow, really fall in the standings, I could see the value in keeping this pick. Ayan says, I think the Raptors have a lot of questions regarding contracts, so I don't think they try to tank, but they may just lose a lot of games anyways. They probably are going to lose a lot of games anyways. And yeah, I think, folks, if there's one sort of thing that you want to look forward to moving forward with this team, it's that the Raptors still have players they need to develop. And yes, you remove a big puzzle piece with Scottie Barnes not being there anymore, but you still have to develop these guys. And, I think the added usage for IQ and RJ and Grady and those guys, I think it'll actually be pretty beneficial. For IQ, first and foremost, he's going to be asked to be a pick and roll initiator more, to make plays more, to be on the ball more. And that will help him in general in terms of his playmaking growth. We probably won't see the staggering scoring numbers we've seen over the last little bit. Maybe he'll be more aggressive, actually, with Scottie Barnes out. There's going to be shots there for him to take, much more shots for him to take. RJ Barrett, the same thing applies. He gets to 20 in his sleep. RJ somehow, every time I look up at the scoreboard, he's got 15 on his way to 20. It's incredible. It genuinely is a very incredible trait to have, because you're like, where did this even, like, you look up and you're like, this is the quietest 20-point game I've ever seen in my life. And yet he ends up with 20 pretty much every single night. And so I think RJ will be asked to be more of a playmaker, to be more of a decision maker for the Toronto Raptors. And I think long term, that's a pretty good thing too. So maybe, if I'm trying to see this as a glass half full type approach, maybe this is a blessing in disguise to help develop RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly, and to maybe give some extra reps to Grady Dick, to Ochai Abaji, to Jordan Wara, to Javon Freeman Liberty, excuse me. Just going to be development galore for the Toronto Raptors moving forward. Raptors fan asked, do you think the Raptors should have taken the Knicks first for Bruce Brown? I do. Because if the Raptors were trading a first for Kelly and Ochai, I think they could have easily recouped that first for Bruce Brown. And even if it was a 2024 first, because it was actually, I mean, it's pretty much reported. Grange even reported it today on the Raptors show. It was a 2024 first. It was a late 2024 first too. And so I think it would have made sense to recoup that pick. And so you're essentially net value. You got Ochai and Kelly for free. Like that's what it would have looked like. But for the most part, I think with Bruce, there's going to be offers on the table this summer. Not just because he's a valuable piece for a contender, but because his contract is extremely valuable, because that $20 million off the books, it could open up cap space for other teams. And so there's still value in acquiring that contract this summer. Does it fetch a first? It's a fake first, really, that the Knicks were offering. It was like 25th and 26th in this draft, right? Does he still fetch that in this draft? Maybe. Yeah. And like in this summer, does he fetch that again? Maybe. I could see that. But at the same time, I'm just not sure what his value is going to be and how he kind of looks moving forward. Folks, try to focus on the fact that this Raptors team is going through an incredible process of change. And with change, there's going to be some hardships. There's going to be some moments where you doubt and you question yourself and you wonder why this is happening to you. And with Scottie Barnes, clearly that was the case, right? You feel that. I think I feel that from everybody in this fan base right now. It's a bummer, franchise player. He just had an all-star season, has been playing incredible. He was figuring out the little details of the game, how to be a number one option in this league. And to have this is a really, really tough loss for this Raptors team, who was finally fun again. This Raptors team was fun. They were fun to watch. Even if they weren't like winning every single game, they were very, very fun because they were playing with an identity. They were playing with Scottie and RJ and IQ, and those guys were flying off of screens, and Grady was flying off of screens, and they were back cutting guys to death, and Jakob and Kelly were making plays, and Ochai was cutting, and, there was an identity there. And that identity sort of got ripped out from them with this Scottie injury. And so I understand why everybody is sad and kind of frustrated with this, because as soon as there was, some sort of fun with the Raptors, it just gets taken away. It's been a brutal season. There's no question about that. But I don't want to end on a brutal note. And so I think if I want to leave with something positive, is that this is all part of the process. Scottie Barnes will be back. Scottie Barnes will likely have his hand heal very, very perfectly. And Scottie will be back next season, entering his fourth year after an all-star season, improved. He will likely get better. And the Raptors still got that pizza party at the end of the day. And now maybe they lose so much that they have a chance to retain their pick. So if we're talking about positives, there are a few ways to look at this and say, IQ and RJ will have their development. Guys will be able to get more time, more playing time. We'll see some of these younger guys get some opportunity. And at the same time, Scottie still proved to a lot of people this season that he can be the number one option on a team, that he can be the cornerstone of a team that's trying to build for something more. And I think that's a very, very important lesson for the Toronto Raptors to have after this year, is to know who they can trust and know who they can rely on. And Scottie is that guy. That's it. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tapping in. I appreciate you guys. And hey, if you did listen to the Raptors show for the last 3 days, thank you. It means a lot to me. I'm not gonna get emotional, but I really, really do appreciate everybody who has supported me doing this. You question yourself at times, you question what you're doing, but to get that type of validation, to be on the Raptors show, to be able to do this, to be able for Samson to trust me with his baby and let me do this reaction pod, um, it's incredible. It really is, and it makes me feel good. That's it, folks. Thank you so much for tapping in. Subscribe, do all the things you guys do. Literally do everything. You know, the liking, the commenting, all those things, right? Thank you so much for listening to Raptors Republic. I appreciate you guys. I will see you guys for Sunday against the Charlotte Hornets and the recap. Take care. Oh, I guess I should do Samson's outro. I'll do Samson's outro. If you're reading this, what does he say? I always forget what he says, but I know what he says. If you're listening to this in the morning, at night, or in the afternoon, have a blessed day and good night, right? That's what he says. I think that's what he says. Take care, guys.